Travel and Things, in association with Rugged Wear, Real People, Real Clothing, Real Solutions, presents In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and my guest today is none other than, can I say, comedy legend, Nik Rabinowitz. Nik, welcome to you.
Thank you, Dave. I was trying to remember, we did this sometime during lockdown.
We did indeed.
I can remember seeing the pictures on your wall, but I have no recollection of what we talked about.
It was lockdown. Who remembers anything other than sourdough bread and banana loaves?
And pineapple beer. I think there was actually one point, do you remember when there was no yeast anywhere? You walked into Pick and Pay and the yeast was gone. And there were people actually fighting over the last remaining, like the beer brewers and the sourdough makers were coming to blows about the last of the yeast.
And then, of course, Marmite vanished off our shelves because Marmite is a byproduct of the yeast from the brewing. So that stopped.
Oh, right.
We had a whole different demographic fighting.
Jeez, yeah, I missed that.
And then fish paste and anchovette have now left the shelves.
Forever!
Forever. Because the marketing people have decided that our tastes have changed. We no longer want to eat oily, fish-smelling stuff on our toast.
Well, yeah. I mean, the inhumanity of it all.
I just don't know what's going to happen to those pretentious people that go to those very fancy coffee shops and go, oh, I'll just have a slice of anchovy toast at like 45 Rand a shot.
Yeah, nothing will happen to those people, to answer your question.
They'll find something else to put on their toast. Apricot jam at 50 Rand.
Caviar.
Nik, you're about to come back to Joburg. 16th to the 26th, you'll be at Theatre on the Square in Sandton, presenting.
Yeah, I haven't.
Show.
Yes. What is it called again?
I think it's called It's Over. Over it.
It's Nik Rabinowitz is Over It. Yes, okay. That is the title. I don't know if it's over. I don't think it's over yet. That'll be my next show.
It was. I thought it was, but it wasn't. Show.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. Yeah. It's nice to come back. I haven't been at the theatre. I haven't been at any theatre in Joburg for 3 years. 2019 was the last time I did a show in Joburg. We still have restrictions, so it's still, it's not great. Yeah. It's not 100% great, but it's still nice.
Hopefully, by the time you get up here, because there's supposedly one more family meeting coming from our president.
Oh, really?
And things may change again, so you may well be able to play to full houses, which would be wonderful. I mean, I just attended an opening night, which was one of 3. Because the Relevant Theatre couldn't fit everybody in, so they had to have 3 opening nights and then the official opening.
Yeah, and they're still not open.
And they're still not. So what is the show about?
This show, what is this show about? I don't actually remember, but I can try and remember. I think it's kind of about the experience of navigating the last 2 years. Is it 2 years now? Actually, the only way to know is if you put on ETV, you'll see it's they give you the day of lockdown. I think we're on 731.
Okay.
Or something like that.
You're right.
I don't know. No, surely no. It started on March the 23rd or something like that. So we're just almost at the 2-year anniversary.
Correct. I don't know why they.
Yeah.
I thought maybe 24 would give it to me, but it doesn't.
Okay. I mean, there are various themes that I deal with. I've actually got a calculation for our average life expectancy. So I talk about the mathematical modeling of that from an actuarial science point of view, which is pretty impressive for a kid who went to Waldorf and only did maths twice. And it just gets better from there.
Is that why you do those financial ads lying with no clothes on? Or purported to
absolutely. To demonstrate my great mathematical abilities.
Now, we were talking just before we turned on this interview about our surnames, because both Batsoffen and Rabinowitz, for some people, are just a tad difficult to pronounce. And when I was doing national service back in 1971, I became Batsa Vatsagut for 6 months before, because they couldn't pronounce my surname. So what have they done to yours?
Well, I think you got off lightly, Batsa Vatsagut. I mean, I think, die fucking Jood was probably what they called you behind your back.
Yeah, probably.
But Batsoffen isn't that bad compared to Rabinowitz. I mean, Rabinowitz, I've been called all sorts of things, of course. I mean, you get Rabaningswitch, Rabanovich. I mean, there's many, many versions. Rabino, I've been called Rabino what. Actually, do you know what's interesting? Recently, I was recalling meeting a Russian stripper a number of years ago.
As one
who
does.
Asked me what my, as one does. She asked me what my surname was, and I told her. And of course, Rabinowitz is not is a Russian surname that was created to denote the occupation of the owner of the surname.
Right.
So it actually literally means the son of the rabbi.
Oh, okay.
And only quite recently, through genealogical research, did I discover that we actually are potentially not Rabinowitzes, that we're actually Katzenellenbogens, which takes the pronunciation to a whole nother level. But she said, "There's Rabinovich," because in Russia the emphasis would be on the no. Rabinovich this is the Russian surname. This is a character in the Russian joke. And I said, "Really? That's interesting. Like, what is the character?" And she said, basically, it was like a kind of those typical jokes, an Englishman, an Irishman, and whatever the Russian equivalent is. But Rabinovich was the third character who always walks into a bar. And I said, "Oh, so what is Rabinovich like?" And she said, "This is a stupid Jew." And I just kind of brushed it off. But now, more recently, I've been reminded of the levels of Russian anti-Semitism, shall we call it, that need to be denazified.
Yeah. Is that going to form part of your show? That people can
I think that will be maybe a little bit, but I mean, that's obviously quite recent. I think it may be part of my next show. But I don't know where your people were from, but I've always thought of us as Lithuanian refugees. But of course we weren't, because at the time my grandparents left, it was part of Russia. So they were actually Russian refugees fleeing the tyranny of the Russian tyranny, the pogroms, but also being conscripted. I think my grandfather was meant to be conscripted into the Russian army at the age of 14. We're seeing this right now in the Ukraine, with all these young Russians being sent to their death. And that was the reason he escaped and saved up money to bring all of his family out.
This took a turn that I was not expecting, but that's what it's like with stand-up comics. You never know what's coming next.
You never know.
Nik, how have you gotten stage fit? You know, people don't realize that if you're off stage, away from an audience for a while, you lose the edge, you lose the spontaneity of dealing with an audience. Is there a way of getting that fitness back? I mean, you can't go to a gym and run on a treadmill for an hour at a time to get that sort of fitness back. What have you done, if anything?
Well, I mean, fortunately, I was able to do a lot of online work, which wasn't obviously being on a stage, but it kept my brain functioning. And once I'd worked out how to do it and do it in a way where I could interact with people versus not see anybody at all, that kept me going. And then, of course, things have opened up with stand-up comedy for quite a while, because we're kind of more underground, and we could open up little rooms in all sorts of places. The back of one of the first shows we did was in the back of a catering company on the Cape Flats opposite the SPCA. You could literally hear donkeys from next door. but that wasn't. It was one of the audience laughing, and so we've gotten back on stage, I think, earlier than some of the other entertainers. But it does take a while to get all the moving parts moving again.
And have you been able to step away from your role as principal in charge of homeschooling?
Yeah, that was a very challenging time.
You see, I'm lucky. My daughter is long past that. So
yeah,
that part of COVID passed me by, literally. And then when I've spoken to parents who have gone, you have no idea how terrifying it was for us to try and teach at a level that we don't remember. That wasn't the type of stuff that we did back in school.
I think we were fortunate because our kids were at a school where the teachers really, had the resources and were able to kind of make it bearable. But both my wife and I working from home, and then all the kids being homeschooled and everybody at home and no parental support. The struggle was real, Dave. The struggle was real.
Do you wear the badge with pride, though?
Sure. I mean, you kind of forget how. I think we've sort of forgotten how challenging it was. But it was also on the back of, at least for me, kind of every single job I had booked for the rest of eternity being eviscerated within about a 3-day period. So the level of anxiety was also like skyrocketing.
I was about to say, did you take it out on the children, though? It's because of you. I've got no work.
There was some. I'm sure there was voices raised. At one point, our neighbor had to shout over the wall to tell them to shut up.
But it all becomes grist for the comedy mill, I suppose, at the end of the day.
It does. It does. That's something my neighbor wasn't very pleased with, because that ended up in the U magazine.
Listen, if you really don't like your neighbor, you know what you do. You
offer them 6 bottles of wine with a street value of 1.2 million rand, which is what I did.
No. You send his name and address to Reader's Digest. He'll never get off that.
Oh, yes. Do they still send things out? Wow, that's amazing.
I think they do. I think it's just got smaller and smaller and more expensive. I haven't read a Reader's Digest in 100 years. They used to be the go-to, but no longer.
Yeah.
It's now past. It's went. It's been.
Yeah.
Do people, I don't know what it is. I was saying you and stagecraft and getting back and being fit. And the couple of shows that I've been back to, the audience don't seem to realize that it's a show. They continue to play on their cell phones. They continue to chat while the performance is on. It's almost as if they need to learn theatre etiquette all over again.
I wonder. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I see this with comedy. Of course, it's easier with stand-up because you can literally interrupt people and go, hey, like, get your ADD under control. The show has begun. With the fourth wall, with drama or other things, I think it's more challenging. But I've experienced just audiences also just being like a little bit awkward. Like people. So we were talking about this the other day with my wife. Something about our level of social comfort, that setting, that set point, suddenly being dramatically lowered because of these 2 years of isolation and not being around people.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I think the levels of social anxiety and just being in a group of people again is kind of weird. And especially with comedy, what you're relying on is that the audience kind of bonds and becomes one organism. And that's when the best comedy happens, because they're kind of laughing as one and it just ripples through. And so it takes that. I've noticed that's taking a little while. It's taking like longer than it would normally to actually get into that zone.
Well, I'm just hoping that by the time, as things open up and people become more relaxed, I know the feeling, because you meet people that you haven't seen for a while and you sort of go, can I hug? Should I handshake? Should I just stand and wave from afar? It's really, really different. But hopefully, slowly but surely, things will return to relevant.
I think so.
Relevant normalcy, if that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
So it's over with Nik Rabinowitz. On from the 16th.
It's not over, but I'm over it, Dave.
You're over
I know you want it to be over.
No, I don't want it to be over. Why do I keep saying this? Let me try again. I'll edit all the rest out.
We all want it to be over, for God's sake.
No, but Nik Rabinowitz is over it.
The pandemic is over. That's what I should have called
it. Whatever it's going to be called, over it, it's over. It'll be.
Yeah, it's all over. Yeah.
It will be on at the Theatre on the Square in Sandton from the 16th to the 26th of March. And if you want a really good laugh, I suggest, because now, as the blurb says that Daphne sent out, after 765 days of elbow bumping, hand sanitizing, temperature taking, mask wearing, Zoom watching, sourdough baking, moonshine making madness, he's back, alive and in person. And we're so glad to have you back in Joburg, Nik. We really and truly are. I, for one, cannot wait to see you on stage. It's been too long. It really has.
Thanks, Dave. Can I just ask, on behalf of all of our listeners, to clarify 3 things in your Zoom background?
Yes.
FFY818. What is the significance of this? Is it something to do with the apocalypse? The Free State?
It's a license plate that I found at the airport many years ago when I was leaving to go on a trip. I picked it up, I put it in my bag, and it went with me, I think, to Croatia, and then came back and is now on my wall. I can't leave license plates lying around. I feel bad for them.
Right.
They need a home. So this one.
What does FFY stand for?
For nothing. It's a car license plate. It's just like.
Is it Russian? Is it Russian for fuck's sakes, Yuri?
Perhaps. I did not think of that. Maybe it's.
And then on your far left is that Clint Eastwood?
It is indeed, done by my father-in-law, the inimitable Dorf Fedler. It was
Dorf Fedler, the cartoonist.
Yes. So this was one of his early works. And the person to whom he gave it died a couple of years ago, and the son gave it back to Dorf, who said, "I know you have a place for it," because this other one here is that
his cartoon of you?
That's his cartoon of me, correct? From when we first.
And then also, our listeners have written in to say, what is the significance of the paws that you have had tattooed on your arm?
You fast. It's my cat from 4 years ago when he died. He was a big part of my life. So hence
I just picked up the ashes this morning, my dog's ashes from the vet. Why do these animals leave? Why is it so hard? It's so devastating.
It's almost harder than saying goodbye to humans. It really
is.
Maybe it's because we don't necessarily euthanize our humans, but invariably we euthanize our animals. So we are taking control of their lives, and it's a huge thing. I think anybody who goes through life without an animal is missing something. Doesn't matter what animal it is. I'm saddened for your loss. It's one of those things. I wanted to end on a high note. Now you've brought us really down, Nik.
I had to do a show the night my dog died. Actually, I nearly cancelled it. And then I cried all day. Yeah. And then at 8 o'clock I had to get on stage. It's a couple of weeks ago. And
okay, we'll just pick it up. So continue.
My wife said, listen, what would the dog have wanted?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, he would have wanted me to go out and play. So I went out. I didn't tell them what had happened to me that day. I just did the show, and I was telling the story about. I went on a. This is actually in the show that I'll be doing in Joburg about a suicide mountain rescue that I was part of, and I ended up having to run after this guy on the mountain for quite a long period of time, and my dog was part of this. He was running between the two of us because I couldn't catch up with him, and he was running to the suicidal guy, licking him, coming back to lick me, going back to lick him. But it's a long story, and I tell it. And then at the end of the show, I told them what happened, and I said, my wife said, "What would my dog have wanted?" And my dog would have wanted me to come out tonight and lick a suicidal guy in the face. So I'll interview suicidal, and can I lick you in the face? And they said no. And then we went home.
And on that note, once again, thank you for joining me. My guest in conversation with has been Nik Rabinowitz. He will be in Johannesburg for the first time in 3 years, between the 16th and the 26th of March. He'll be at the Theatre on the Square in Sandton with a show that he likes to call Nik Rabinowitz is Over It. See, I got it right.
Yes!
It's only taken me a half an hour. Nik, thank you so much for the chat. It's always great to talk to you, and we'll see you towards the end of the month.
Dankie, meneer Batse goed.